What's up, everyone? Welcome to the January 18th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can find me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, get one free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. We only have a two-game NBA slate today, so this video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of going over 5 players who typically are still relatively popular, but who are projected to be lower owned than their chances of success, we're going to look at one popular player who is still projected to be under owned, and then 2 more contrarian pieces that are less likely to succeed, but also could be difference makers on a 2-game slate. And also keep in mind that we are still waiting on some injury news, so be sure to tune in to the deeper dive from 5:30 until 6:30 and live before lock from 6:30 to 7:30 for more up-to-date information. Starting with the popular player that we're going to talk about, Cade Cunningham is only $6,000 on FanDuel. He's projected for 63% ownership, but is still projected to be under-owned. We have him with a 68% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He has a dangerous matchup at Golden State. The Pistons are 14-point dogs against the Warriors. So there's certainly a chance that this game just gets completely out of hand and Cade Cunningham doesn't step on the floor in the fourth quarter. But even if that happens, he probably plays 28 or 29 minutes, and he's likely to succeed at $6,000, or at least put up a score that you can live with. If he does get his full 34 or so minutes of run, he's almost certainly going to succeed at a $6,000 price tag. So he's just an example of a very high upside, high floor play that is getting a lot of ownership, but still right now doesn't look like he's getting quite enough. As far as the contrarian options go, Malik Beasley has been very bad this year from a fantasy standpoint. He's only averaging around 0.7 to 0.75 fantasy points per minute for the Timberwolves, but you can still expect him to play around 24 minutes tonight against the Knicks. It's a pace down spot, not a very appealing matchup, but Beasley's only projected for 5% ownership. He has a 6% chance of being in the optimal lineup. The games where Beasley has done really anything off the bench have been few and far between this year, but he is still going to get those minutes. He does have a track record prior to this season, at least, of being a capable scorer off the bench. So on a 2-game slate, it's pretty difficult to find low-owned plays that don't have huge question marks. In this case, it's Beasley's ability to produce fantasy points at this point, but at only 5% ownership is a spot where I think that you can take a chance on him in larger field tournaments. And then another lower owned option that's getting a little bit more ownership than Beasley, but still only projected for about 6 to 7%. Saban Lee has a 14% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's only $3,700 at point guard. The case for Lee is that on average, he's probably going to play around 16 minutes or so. He's averaged just shy of a fantasy point per minute this season. So if you get 16 minutes at his average production, it's going to be a mediocre but not horrible score at 3,700. But you could always either A, just have him play at a higher rate than normal or produce at a higher rate than normal, and he helps you out that way. Or 2, the Pistons have a very volatile rotation. With the exception of guys like Cade Cunningham and Sadiq Bey, you can't really guarantee that any one player is in the starting lineup if the game's competitive. And then obviously this game has some blowout risk too, where Lee could get garbage time runs. So you could just have Lee produce at a higher rate than normal. You could have him pay off by playing more minutes than expected because the Warriors are winning by 30 points in the fourth quarter and the Pistons just roll out their garbage time unit for longer. Or you could have Saban Lee play really well and take minutes away from Killian Hayes and maybe be in the closing lineup because he's playing so well. I don't think that's super likely, but it's definitely a greater than 0% chance. And at very low ownership, where it's difficult to find low-owned players that still offer any sort of upside, I think Lee looks like a very appealing way to differentiate your lineups tonight. So to recap, Cade Cunningham getting tons of ownership, but well-deserved, appears to still be going a bit under-owned. And then if you're looking towards the bottom of the barrel, trying to find a couple of very low-owned players that still have some sort of path to success, Malik Beasley at $4,000 and Saban Lee at $3,700 both look like guys that could potentially be difference makers tonight in large field tournaments.